Usapin sa COVID-19 vaccine at sitwasyon ng ating mga kababayan sa China ang ating alamin kasama si Ambassador Jose Santiago Santa Romana, Philippine Ambassador to China. Magandang araw po, Ambassador.
Magandang araw.
Opo. Ambassador, una po sa lahat, kumusta po ang kalagayan ng ating mga kababayan na nandiyan po sa China?
Sa kabuuan naman ay mahusay at hinggil sa COVID-19 pandemic situation dito sa China ay halos kontrolado na yung domestic local community transmission is basically down to zero. Ang problema lang talaga dito yung tinatawag na imported cases o yung mga Chinese citizens na galing sa labas na pagdating sa airport, pagkatapos mag-swab test ay lumalabas na meron ng dalang virus. Kasali na rin dyan ang mga dayuhan. No? Ngayon sa hanay ng mga Pinoy, yung mga dito nakatira at nagtatrabaho dito, sa ngayon ay mahusay ang kalagayan nila. Ang meron lang ilang kaso na nagkaroon, mga Filipino seamen na working on Chinese or foreign ships na nagdadock sa tapos pagkatapos subject sa swab test ay merong ilan na nagtetest ng positive kaya sila ay dinalagay kaagad sa quarantine at dinadala sa ospital. As of now, though the situation is quite good, naka-recover na ang halos lahat or karamihan sa kanila. So overall, mahusay ang sitwasyon naman ng mga Pinoy dito sa China. And I'll explain in a while kung ano ang ilang problema meron pa.
Opo, Ambassador, sa ngayon po may mga kababayan pa rin po ba tayong humihingi ng repatriation assistance sa ating embahada?
Yes. Yun ang gusto ko nga ipaliwanag eh. Ngayon, karamihan ng humihingi ng repatriation flight ay itong mga Filipino seamen na stranded dito. Ibig sabihin, they're working on Chinese ships or foreign ships, pero nagkaroon ng economic problems or financial problems yung kumpanya. Kaya nandun lang sila sa laot. They're off the ports of China kasi nag-iingat ang China na against imported cases at saka ang patakaran dito ay huwag pababain sa barko yung mga nag-iintay ng mga dayuhang seaman. So, in the case of these Filipino seamen, they want, since waiting, some of them have been waiting for days, for weeks, and so they want to disembark and they've been asking for help to be repatriated back. Kasi either tapos na yung kontrata nila or hindi na, wala na ng trabaho. Kaya yun ang pinaghahandaan namin. All the diplomatic, the consulates around China are preparing for a repatriation flight that is being planned by DFA, particularly the Migrant Worker Affairs, no? At hinahanda nga ito baka sa susunod na mga linggo. Ang plan ngayon ay sa early November or mid-November at latest to organize another repatriation flight. As you probably know, there were before, ang kaso, yung mga Pinoy na nawalan ng trabaho, na nag-iintay lang dito at nahihirapan, kaya they wanted to go home. Na ayos na yon at nung Agosto, merong isang grupo nanggaling sa Beijing, no? August, September, there was another group in Shanghai, as well as in Guangzhou, no? So, naayos yung ganung problema. Ang problema ngayon ay yung mga stranded seafarers na nahirapan na dahil naghihintay lang sila sa barko at walang plano. Yung may-ari na dahil because of financial problems, cannot pay them or their contracts are over. So that's the one we're focused on right now.
Opo. Ambassador, aside from dun sa mga stranded na seafarers, ilan pong mga Pilipino yung estimate lang po na makabalik na, nagpahayag na nais nilang makabalik na o repatriation dito sa Pilipinas?
No, actually, it used to be in the hundreds, no? But most of them have gone home. Ang natitira na lang ngayon, I think, is less than 100 or a little more, no? Pero one flight will be able will suffice for now, one repatriation flight, and we hope this will be it. Ang lumalabas na isa pang problema ay yung mga nagtatrabaho sa China na mga Pinoy na umuwi nung bago na lockdown dito, tapos hindi na makabalik. Ngayon gusto nilang bumalik, mga for 300. At its height, it was around 500, but the Dole is now organizing a charter or 2 charter flights for around 300. At yun din ang pinagtutulungan namin na clearance from the Chinese authority para matuloy ito. Kung matuloy ito, baka sa linggong ito or sa susunod na linggo, magawa na ito. No? Ang plan nga ay we're really trying hard to get the clearance for this repatriation. So dalawang klaseng problema. Isa yung repatriation mula dito, mga stranded seafarers, pauwi. At meron din mga stranded Pinoys na nagtatrabaho dito pero nasa Pilipinas na hindi makabalik dahil halos walang airline na no flights available, or kung meron man county lang at mahal pa ang ticket, no? One-way ticket, 100 pesos. Looking for low cost or the usual airline flight. Kaya tinutulungan din ng gobyerno, particularly yung DOLE at saka DFA, para maka-charter ng flight para makabalik sila at makatrabaho ulit.
Opo, Ambassador, pero kumusta na po naman ang status sa development naman po ng bawat vaccines na pinag-aaralan ng China, at ano-ano po ba yung uri ng COVID-19 vaccines yun daw pong posibleng maaprubahan na for distribution?
Okay, the Chinese authorities announced this week that they are close to the regulatory approval for general use of Chinese, no? The 4 vaccines na ngayon nando sa final phase na tinatawag na phase 3, no? Kasi yung phase 1 nag-umpisa na yan nung June pa eh. It started with several dozen volunteers. Phase 2, several hundreds. Ngayon they are in phase 3, the final phase. One vaccine, over 60,000 yung kanilang volunteers. Another vaccine, they're talking of 50,000. Kaya, one Chinese official has, during the press conference, actually announced that perhaps as early as next month, coming soon, in November, there could be the regulatory approval, or the Chinese FDA would announce which of the 4, or all of the 4, whichever, they're now being evaluated kung pwede na for general use. So that is what we're waiting for. Now the Chinese pharmaceutical companies are already producing, of course, these vaccines on a limited scale. Pagka nagkaroon ng approval by the Chinese FDA, and then they plan to ramp up production. During their announcement of this the Chinese health officials, as well as the Chinese pharmaceutical companies, and from the reports in the Chinese official media, they're talking of possibly ramping up production by the end of the year to as much as, they're talking of hundreds of millions of dosage, as much as 600 million dosage once there is approval, no? And after approval, next year, they're talking of as much as 1 billion dosages, no, of this vaccine. So we'll know soon. Kasi ini-evaluate yung data at yung results ng phase 3, the final phase. The initial report, according to these Chinese officials, walang adverse reaction sa clinical trials, not this. So the prospects are quite bright. And the question now, of course, is, the Philippines is one of the countries for China, no, in terms of the distribution and deployment of the vaccines. Of course, madami pang pag-uusap dyan. What our embassy is doing is facilitating the communication between, of course, DFA and then the lead agencies of vaccine, no? DOST, DOH, at saka, of course, DBA, no, in terms of procurement. So we're facilitating the communication, but there's still a lot of contacts, of exchanges that have to be made. We're in the initial or the preliminary stage. So right now, the important thing is to wait for the final announcement by the Chinese of which vaccines are going to be approved. And then when they start the production, when they're ready for distribution, then there are obviously more diplomatic talks that will have to be conducted. So yun ang outlook as of now. No?
Opo. Ambassador, may pinadala pong tanong ating mga kasamahan sa media, if I may, Ambassador. Tanong po mula kay
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Ambassador. Mula po kay Athena Imperial ng GMA News. Ang tanong po niya, may chance po ba na magdagsaan ng turista sa China for a chance to get experimental vaccine shot?
Sorry, magdagsaan ng Chinese tourists
Ang mga turista po
get
pupunta sa
experimental
China.
shots?
Opo. Para daw po magkaroon ng chance.
Well,
Yung mga turista po na
bumalik
pupunta...
ang tourism sa Pilipinas, ganun ba?
Hindi po. Yung pupunta po sa China, magtuturi sa papuntang China.
I see. Okay. First of all, the Chinese are not encouraging international tourism at the moment kasi nga ang malaking nila, nakatutok sila sa international arrivals kasi halos zero na community transmission dito. Kaya hindi pa bukas ang pintuan ng China for tour. Fortunately, you cannot join a tour and come here and get a vaccine, no? However, neither to the Chinese government recently just announced sarado din, no? They won't allow their Chinese tourists to go abroad right now kasi tuloy pa rin yung global pandemic. Bumabas yung mga Chinese tourists tapos ma-infect at dalhin nila dito yung virus. Ito na naman ang problema. Kaya the doors are closed for tourism, both from outside as well as for Chinese tourists going abroad. Very ang pinapayagang lumabas. But domestic tourism in China is booming. They just had their national holidays. Yung national day nila, yung tinatawag na Golden Week, isang linggo yan. And in this case, it was 8 days kasi meron pa isang China festival na dinagdag. The reports were 600 million Chinese were traveling within the country. And so far, naiwasan nila na magkaroon ng second ng clusters. So back to your question, unfortunately, that is wishful thinking right now. Hindi basta sa China, ang pinapayagan lang ngayon yung merong mga work visas na yun nga, stranded nga yung mga 300 to 400 dyan sa Pilipinas na bumalik dito. Of course, mga diplomatic assignments. But ordinary tourists, unfortunately, the doors are still closed right now.
Opo, Ambassador, may tanong pa rin po yung iba pa rin ating kasamahan sa media, if I may, Ambassador. Tanong po mula kay...
Yes.
Thank you, Ambassador. Tanong po mula kay Belia Carriazo ng Daily Tribune. Ilan daw po yung mga stranded na seamen sa China?
Well, we've been still flexible and we're still trying. But it's right now, we counted at least 70. But, meron pa rin dumarating minsan na barko. And we get reports that there are Filipinos there. So it's a flexible. That's why I said it's roughly less than 100. Meron na nakauwing isang grupo just last month. And in a case of some of the seafarers, they were waiting for several months off the coast of southern China because ang policy ng China noon was not to allow yung mga seafarers to get down, to disembark from their boats because pinag-iingatan nila yung tinatawag na imported cases. So pumayag rin on an emergency basis, nakababa yung mga seafarers na yun na nagsuot ng PPE at saka of course nag-swab test and then diretso sa eroplano and then papauwi sa Pilipinas. And some of the others, they were able, the company, some of the shipping companies were able to put them together in one boat tapos hinatid sa port sa Manila. So there have been cases already. The only ones remaining are now several dozens, no? And that's what we're preparing for. But we're prepared for roughly 100 or so. We'll see if it will grow further, pero one repatriation flight should do it.
Po, Ambassador, last question na lang daw po, gaano daw po karami in case lang po na vaccine ay papamahagi at kung libre daw po itong ibibigay sa Pilipinas ng China?
We're not there yet. Hindi pa malinaw yung kasagutan dyan. Pag-uusapan pa yan. Pero the Chinese have put us on a priority basis. And I think kasali dyan yung mga ASEAN countries. And I think the Chinese, it certainly will not be for, for profit. At most, it will be at cost. Pero on exactly the price and all that, it's still subject to negotiations and more talks. So, stay tuned.
Okay. Ambassador, kunin ko na lamang po ang inyong mensahe sa ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na po yung ating mga kababayan na naandyan sa China.
Well, so sa mga nandito sa China, we have asked them, if they have any problems, keep in touch with the nearest consulate or with the Philippine Embassy. Malaki in China, kaya we have several, the Philippine Embassy in Beijing basically takes care of northern China, pero ranging Tibet and Sichuan in the west to Shandong and the north and Liaoning in the north, or Jilin. So, how yan sa embassy? Then there's the consulate in Shanghai, the pair of those in eastern China. Meron tayong consulate sa Xiamen, meron din tayong consulate sa southwest China, sa Chongqing. We asked the Filipinos in China to contact the nearest, keep in touch with the nearest consulate if you have any problems. As for the seafarers, or kung sino yung nasa barko na dumating sa China, hindi pa namin alam, feel free to contact us right away. We have both online or through cell phone or direct to the dearest and we'll provide assistance. Of course, the Chinese have been very helpful, the Chinese authorities. Gusto ko lang iliwanag uli na mahusay naman ang kondisyon ng mga Pilipino dito. Ang problema lang nga ay madaming nagtatrabaho dito pero hindi makauwi, no? Dahil kulang ang flights or mahal ang tickets, and because yung mga quarantine protocol on both sides, no? Kung umuwi ka, 2 weeks sa Pilipinas, quarantine. Pagbalik mo dito, 2 weeks ka rin quarantine. So halos isang buwan ka agad, maubos. So yun lang, iniintay namin sanang mahusay ang kondisyon sa China in terms of the pandemic, pero iniintay namin mahumusay din sa Pilipinas at sa ibang bansa para noon unti-unti maka-achieve ng normality. Dito sa China mismo, I think the Filipinos are actually in a safe condition. They can now move around. Of course, they still have to observe the basics, no? Wear the mask, social distancing, hygiene. So ang overall message ko lang sa mga Filipinos dito, mag-ingat pa rin. While the conditions have improved in China, we still have to maintain our vigilance so that we can stay safe and in good condition. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat.
Maraming salamat po sa pagbabahagi ng mahalagang impormasyon, Ambassador Jose Santiago Santa Romana.